episode 5, CBC3. Whoa, guys, we got into some areas that I don't know a lot about service. I've never been shy about that. I love service. I love mechanics. I love writers. I love gross profit. I love all the things that happen back there. I just don't understand it. Today, I got myself a serious education from a woman who's been doing this damn near 40 years in the car business, Jeanette Baldwin, Anderson Honda, out in beautiful Palo Alto, California, a dealer partner of ours for a long time. She talks about how great it is to work for the people she works for, makes it easier for her to be great for the people that work for her. Wow, that's enlightening. She's got 3 pieces that she thinks has changed the game in the last 5 years. Tune in to find out exactly what those are. Watch on, grab your team, guys. You're gonna cover how to recruit. You're gonna cover how to find better talent. You're gonna find we're gonna dig into some terminology, which was new to me. So those of you who watch the show who aren't as familiar with service, this is going to be a fun episode. And for those of you in service, I think you're really gonna appreciate the light we shine on the hard work that you folks do every single day. Sit down, grab a pen, and tune in for another wonderful episode of the CBC3, episode 5 with Jeanette Baldwin. Thank you so much and have a wonderful week. All right, welcome into another CarBiz Chronicles Season 3 episode. Today, we're going to go into areas that I'm not necessarily the most comfortable with because I don't have a ton of service background, which is why my next guest is, that's why I wanted her on, because she's been doing this a long time. She knows about it. She can help me understand it better. Everyone welcome Jeanette Baldwin, Service Director, Anderson Honda. Jeanette, how are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you, Sean.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we were talking a little bit of pre-show here. So you said 37 years in the car business.
Yes.
37 years. And you said you sat in most of the seats, mainly in the service department. Tell me about the first job. You were telling me a little bit about it. I want to hear more about kind of the first gig of having to deal with parts, trucks, and phone calls.
So my first job ever was at a Toyota store. And I remember the interview because I had applied for the parts truck driver, and the owner or principal came and asked me, why do you want to do that? I said, it sounds like fun to me. And he goes, do you even know what an alternator is? And I told him yes. He goes, what about a quarter panel? I said yes. He goes, okay, we'll try. And I answered the phones first thing in the morning for the parts department, and then I got in my little parts truck and drove around. Best job I ever had. But, I wanted to move up and move on, and I sometimes had to change dealerships to move forward. But the car business overall has been very, very good to me. I've had a very wonderful career.
My dad is currently a parts truck driver for a client of ours, a partner of ours in my hometown where I grew up, and he said it's the best thing he's ever done. He loves talking to people. He loves being in the car. He loves listening to his music, his talk radio, whatever it is. He says it's so freeing to really, it's like you don't have a boss until you get to somewhere, then you have to deal with someone. So it's funny you say that you look forward to it, but I'm interested. I wonder if those same questions get asked to a guy interviewing for a parts job, Do they know what an alternator is? Do they know what a quarter panel is? Because I would have failed on 1 out of 2. At least I know what an alternator is, but I couldn't pick one off a shelf. I'll tell you that right now.
I don't think so. I think that there's still a lot of preconceived conceptions about women and what they know and how they do things. There were times when I would be looking for a job as a service writer, and I would get technical questions. I'd be asked if I could sell things that men wouldn't have to answer, challenges they wouldn't have to deal with.
Jeanette, okay, so you can look back on that retrospectively now. Obviously, it's changed, not as much as we'd all like it to change over the years. But looking back on that, is that something that helps strengthen you though as a person and makes your resolve better in the position? Or early on, was it a deterrent, something that almost maybe pushed you away from the opportunity?
Oh no, I always accept the challenge. I took it upon myself to show them that I was as good or better as anyone they've ever hired. And it was worth it. They, it was, I started when it wasn't cool to have a girl service advisor. It was very unusual, it was very untested, and I lived through the changes in the service industry to where you were actually seeking female representation in your service drive, because more than 50% of the people rolling in your drive are women. And I think that that's a fantastic thing. I do everything that I can to promote and encourage women to get into this field.
You said it was unusual for you to be in that position. Do you remember when that may have shifted or changed timing wise? I mean, I know you've had a long career, but are we talking like early 90s, late 90s? Like, when did you feel like there was a sort of a spin to kind of more acceptance? And like you said, when did it become cool to have those positions filled by women?
The early 90s. Up until then, it was, I was kind of like a weird duck. No one else did it. And then all of a sudden, it was like, oh, that's cool. And women started being entered into the fold willingly, actively. Technicians have had a harder time, though. I wouldn't say that became in vogue until, the mid-2000s.
On the tech side, see, I've always loved female techs. I think they're, like you said earlier, women are more thorough, they're more patient, and to me, in the service department, that is even more important. When you were doing the position as a service writer and you were up against males, if you will, how did you compare without, I don't want to sit here and have you, be on the spot about your data and how you perform, but like, did you find yourself performing better and that's what caught the attention of people you worked for? Is that sort of how it worked for you?
That is correct. I always felt like I had to be twice as good. I, strived for better CSI numbers, better gross profit, better effective labor rate. I always wanted to be on top. So
as a service director now, which is your position that you have currently, how long have you been in the director role?
The last 15 years.
Last 15 years you've been in the director role. And all of those have been with Anderson Honda. Is that how I understand that?
Yes, I was a service director at a couple other dealerships. I came to Anderson Honda as actually the assistant service manager and then graduated into service director.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So when you start looking at, from your position, how do you gauge? I'm interested because, again, as I said in the pre-show, I'm not a big service guy. I was really raised on the front end of the dealership, but I've always loved the service department. What metrics do you track? What are 3 metrics you track right now for a service writer that will help you understand their effectiveness and efficiencies within the dealership right now?
Well, I look at hours per RO, I look at effective labor rate, and I look at how many repair orders they're writing a day.
Okay. So when you look at the effective labor rate, for those of us who don't know what that is, and I'll put myself in that group because I have an idea. Can you go a little deeper into that, what that means, and kind of how that plays into the effectiveness of a person?
So the easiest way to look at that is what you're actually collecting per hour. So if you give a guy an hour to do a job and they end up paying $100, you're effectively $100. But if you give that guy an hour to do that job and you collect 80, then you have an $80 effective labor rate.
And how does an individual control that number? Where does that come in as part of the process, as you say, to go from the 100 to the 80? What would dictate a change like that?
Well, one, you have to know a little bit about cars to know when you're not dealing with oil changes and stuff, how long it actually takes to do work. And then, so your estimates have to be accurate. And then the other thing that you can do is you control your discounts, right? If the only way that you can close a sale is by telling someone, I'll give you 15% off, your effective labor rate's going to really suffer because of it. So when a manager looks at what the differences between the effective labor rates between all their service advisors, you can tell who's giving away the store.
Got it. Got it. All right. So that's probably a really easy one to see there as far as who's giving the discounts, who's not. In the front end, it's about holding gross, which same discussion here, just a little bit different.
Yeah, it's another way to look at it.
Yeah, and that's what I guess that's I always try to make the connection in my own brain so that I can make sense of it. The hours per RO, does that fit into the same discussion, or does that talk about how big a job could potentially be for someone in that world?
So hours per RO tells you how well a technician, the technician and the service advisor are selling. If someone comes in and says, I just want an oil change, and that's all you're writing up, then you're just an order taker, you're not selling. If you have someone come in for an oil change, the technician says, hey, it needs tires, it needs brakes, it needs this, it needs that, and the service advisor sells those things, which is what they're supposed to be doing, their RO average goes up. So you look for people with a higher RO average and give them the kudos, because they're the people that are actually creating work in the shop rather than just herding cattle to the shop.
Okay, see, now that I like, because that makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, do they work in teams, the technicians, and are there assigned teams between tech and advisor? Again, I'm trying to get understanding here, or is it just sort of your guy in, your guy in?
Well, in my shop, we don't have assigned people. Everybody writes, and then the best qualified person that's available does the job. But there are shops that have dedicated teams where, these 5 technicians work for those specific service advisors.
Do you see an advantage out of the way? I mean, clearly you don't do one versus the other, but you've been around them. Is there an advantage to doing that, or where are the headaches, I guess, if there aren't many advantages?
Well, the biggest heartache that I've ever seen, and I have worked in a system where, you got 5 guys attached to 2 service advisors. So, and most mechanics are flat rate, and if one of those service advisors goes on vacation or they call in sick, then you got one guy trying to feed 5 mechanics, and the mechanics suffer because they haven't had the benefit of, somebody writing for them all day or all week.
Got it.
So I find
scheduling.
I find the most effective way to do it is to have all the technicians work out of the same pool of work, and that way you have control over what gets done, when it gets done, and who's doing it. If you just got 2 guys and 5 technicians, and you've got a heavy duty job, and that's tying up your best guy, then you have something come in with a diagnostic, and it goes to somebody that probably shouldn't be doing that, you end up with problems. But when you have what I call an open drive, the best guy that's available gets the job.
Well, see, that's it makes more sense, because I've heard about the team-oriented side, and I've wondered about it myself. I mean, obviously teams work better together, but the scheduling sounds like a nightmare, and people get sick, God forbid now, forget it, right? How all this goes. So with your position as in the service department, as long as you've been in it, you've seen the entire gamut of technology come to your front door. You've had people
Correct.
Sell you everything under the sun to help you do more. What tools are you using today that you weren't using 5 years ago that are helping you really move your service route forward?
Well, I have 3 things that I think have really revolutionized my end of the business. One is I use an appointment scheduler, have used it for years. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, you're just making an appointment. But the way that this particular company, it's called X-Time, addressed it, the appointments, was that they spread them out. In years past, you went to the dealership, you got there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you waited 45 minutes for someone to help you because you're 18th in line. X-Time revolutionized that and spread everybody out. You know, you get 2 appointments every 10 minutes, and then your drive flows and people aren't waiting in line, because once they're all upset because they've sat in line for a half an hour, you're not going to sell them anything. They just want what they came in for, and that's it, and they want to leave. I think that that's crucial in spreading out the business, pacing it so you can spend time with people. The more time you spend with people, the more you can build that relationship that ultimately leads to better tickets. The second thing that we're using that we didn't use before or haven't used in years before is an electronic multi-point inspection. Every car gets one. The electronic part of it is, in my feeling, the revolutionary part of this is that all the recommendations are documented with all the prices, who recommended it, everything you need to know. So the next time someone comes in, you can pull that up, you can see what we did, what we recommended, who recommended it, and you have something to start a conversation with. Oh, Sean, you were here last month and it looked like you needed tires. Would you like to do that now? It's really changed the sales process. And on top of that, it is electronic, so I can email it to people. I can text it to people. They can see it before they get into the shop, so they can see what the car needs before they come to pick it up.
Does that come with the two follow-ups, or does that come with a video component, 1, and 2, is it done by tablets at your advisor inside the drive, or is this something they take and sort of put in behind the scenes? How does that technology play in the drive, like customer facing?
So it is, we don't have a tablet. You could use a tablet, but we print them and present them to customers when they're in front of us. We send it electronically to however they want to talk to us, either email or text, and it does have a video component. You can send videos on it.
So you could basically have your mechanic say, hey, if it's brakes, go take a picture of the brakes, send it to these people so they can see it. Am I missing that, or is that accurate?
No, that's accurate. We actually, the third component that I was going to tell you about is we now have a texting format where we can have conversations with customers, and we can also, on the texting format, send pictures and videos of the things that people need. You know, if they're waiting in the waiting room and you know they need brakes, you can just text them a picture of the brakes and have them come see me, and they find their way back to the service department. It's the electronic portion of customer contact has blossomed in the last 5 years, and it's made communications much smoother.
I've got to imagine that the advent of video and texting capability for you guys is a game changer, not only because of efficiency and speed, which the drive relies on, but also because at the end of the day, it's transparency, right? I mean, how many times would you sit with a customer in the 90s or early 2000s and say, look, you need a new clutch, and they're like, oh, give me a break. How do you know it's warm? Blah, blah, blah. Now I used to tell people all the time, I'd break so many OSHA rules because my guys would be arguing with a customer. I'd say, just walk him back there, and someone would say, Sean, customers can't go back there. I go, look, just show him the brakes. He doesn't get it. So just show him he's in danger. I would always have a little fine jar next to my desk for that. But at the end of the day, you've been able to bring the customer forward. Have you seen that it increases, obviously, communication and probably dollars per RO, I would imagine?
Oh, absolutely. We call it close ratio. It has completely changed that. We're, in the sales department, this doesn't sound like a lot. In service, it's exceptional, but we're in the 45% close ratio, which is huge. And that happened because of the transparency. This is your car. This is your problem. This is your mechanic walking around your car taking pictures of stuff. It builds confidence in people on what you're doing and how you're doing it.
And it makes it real to them, because there's not this division between where you're sitting and where your car is sitting. Your car is right in front of you now. You can see the entire story. So I think the video part, and I think it's helped the sales side too for those who use it, but I think it's revolutionized the service department. I'm so glad to hear that you use it and see the same thing. That is awesome.
Absolutely.
When we go back around here to service advisors, I want to ask you something that I ask most service people. Do you encourage or do your service advisors have their own clientele? Obviously, it's extremely important on the front end of the dealership that my customer is my customer. Do you see that happening in the back end of the dealership? And did you yourself work to have your clientele when you were a writer?
Oh, absolutely. You build a relationship with people. So when they want to come in for an appointment, they ask to talk to you to make the appointment so they know that you're going to be there. I'm very lucky, blessed here. I've had my crew that I have right now for over 8 years. Everyone's been here at least 8 years. And there's people every day that come in and ask for a specific person.
Wait a second. Hold on. I think my camera broke up or my hearing broke up. Did you say your crew's been with you for 8 years? You're talking writers and mechanics, or just writers when we say that?
I'm talking about just writers. I do have mechanics that have worked with me for over 20 years. They came with me from another dealership.
Wow. So you have how many writers do you have?
Right now, due to COVID, I have 6.
Due to COVID, what does pre-COVID look like, or post it?
8.
Okay, 6 to 8. And you guys even are dealing with even more stuff recently, if I'm not mistaken, as far as everything's going on over there. So you're probably even back into this sort of short-term part of it. So 6 writers, all done with you 8 years. Jeanette, what do you credit that to? I mean, look, you're in beautiful Palo Alto. You have a great little dealership. But what else is it that has helped you with the longevity of that sort of setup?
Well, general big picture is, I work for a good dealer. We're not a big corporate store. People are people. We're all treated like we're people, and we're valuable to the dealership. On a department level, I never ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do. If we're shorthanded, I go out and write service. If one of the lag guys aren't here, I park cars. I'll wash cars. I'll answer the phone. I'll file. I will do anything that needs to be done. And because they see that I care about the business and how we proceed and what's happening, I think that makes other people care.
So you're not an office service manager, as I refer to some that I've seen who manage all from the inside of their office, whether that's come into my office, see me in my office. You're out there doing the work. Is that how it's always been for you? You're just going to pitch in and get done whatever needs to be done?
Yes, I'm a pitch-in kind of person. I'll even go out and help them bleed brakes if they need someone to sit in the car and pump the brake pedal. I will do whatever needs to happen.
So I've been to the dealership once, and it was a long time ago when I first started working with John, and I remember a lift outside. Do I remember this correctly? Was there a lift outside? I mean, it's in a covered spot, but it doesn't look like it's in a shop. I'm from the Midwest, where we would never put a lift outside for any reason. Did I see that right? And if so, what does it do? What is its function?
That is our express service, and there's actually 2 of them, and to expedite things, when someone's in for a weight oil change, it rolls right off the service drive right onto express service rack, and it gets its oil changed and parked in customer parking.
It's almost like they can watch it happen, like the old car washes. You know what I mean? Like they could just stand out there and watch you change the oil on their car if they so chose.
If they chose, yeah.
Which is fine. So you've been 6 people on your team for 8 years. Do you within that team? Do you have second managers, like lead managers, assistant managers? How does the structure below you work with your advisors? Or is that, do you have somebody completely different that is not an advisor who you give sort of management roles to? Because I wonder, in the sales side, we do it where we just throw all the roles on one person and call them that. And I just wonder how you guys handle it on the service side.
I do have an assistant manager. He's been with me the whole time that I've been here. You know, he helps, you know, in the drive. And then if it gets beyond what he's comfortable with, then he turns it to me.
Got it. But he is your assistant. He is not a writer. That is not his job. His job is to be an assistant manager doing managerial things throughout the dealership. Is that how I understand it?
Oh, no, I do all the managerial things. He writes.
So he's a writer who's a backup. Okay, so you do have dual roles. Got it. Got it. So as a manager today, what has changed for you, Jeanette, from being a manager 10 years ago to today?
The biggest challenge I have is finding talent. It used to be very easy to find, especially entry-level people, cashiers, porters, detailers. It used to be easy pickings, low-hanging fruit. They were everywhere. Now you can't find them. They're just, you can find mechanics occasionally, but, you know, God help you if you have to find a porter.
And any idea as to why? Any indications of anything that's changed within the market? Because I've seen it across the country, so I wouldn't say it's specific to California. I see the struggle with those entry levels. Are we not competitive enough? Do we expect too much? Is it just not what 20-year-olds want to do anymore? Look, the first thing I did in the car business was I helped my buddy run his parents' body shop, or detail shop inside their body shop. So I was washing cars at 14. I loved it. What do you think we're missing to get those people engaged?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think that anyone's looking for that kind of work. And if they do decide to try it, they figure out that they can do something else for a lot less heartache. You know, it's way less stressful, and it's way less physical to work at Target than to run cars around all day or listen to people on the phone, or it's just that it's a tough industry, you know, and if they don't see the value in it, that there's a path up, then they just don't want to devote themselves to it.
And you're right about the turnover. Once you do find them, it doesn't seem like there's much longevity even in the position to begin with, which then just creates its own frustration of, all right, we're always having to fill a new porter. And again, people may think it's a nothing job. It's an extremely important job, because dealerships having cars in the right places, having people positioned down to the porter is a big difference maker. For your dealership that you have, how many mechanics do you have?
Right now I have 18. I was up to 25 pre-COVID.
And for what you do, again, I'm trying to have an understanding. For what you do, is that a good size shop? I mean, is that something that you consider a larger shop for your history? I mean, 18 to 20 guys?
We're medium. We're not small, but we're not a superstore. We're a medium-sized dealership.
Okay. And so mechanics, right? So here I'm gonna do my sales front end stuff. So we have our salespeople and we have our finance managers and our managers. Mechanics, sort of, who do they work for? I mean, do they work for you? I don't feel like the service writer can tell the mechanic what to do. So I'm really wondering the power setup in the back end of the dealership. What does that look like when mechanics have issue or take issue? Is it direct with an advisor? Does it come to you? How does that work?
It comes to me.
It comes to you. Good. See, because the finance manager starts yelling at the sales guy on the front end. See, so we don't do that. We don't have where the actual manager steps in and does the right thing, which I like. What is the biggest beef a mechanic would have with an advisor? I always seem like they're kind of at each other in my history back in the day, and I just wonder what creates that or why that might be.
Well, in general, is they're either not paying them enough for the job, or they're not giving them enough time to do the job. Service advisors are under the gun all the time. How long is this going to take? And they, a lot of times I don't even care how much it's going to cost. I need brakes, do brakes. Can I have it in an hour? And, they don't have a magic wand. It takes time to fix a car. And then the service advisor is pushing them to do it faster, and they can't do it faster, and that's usually what causes the friction.
And it really is, it's the little things that people don't understand. I think you're absolutely right about the timing of it. But your comment that you just made is really what stands out to me. People are willing to pay more to have something done quicker or have their time back on the road. I feel like, and you tell me, I feel like that emotion has sort of evolved pretty immensely over the last 2 or 3 years, where people have sort of exchanged the time of something for the price of something. Is that how it's happened in the service department?
I can tell you definitely that's the case. Their time is worth more than any money at all. Prior to COVID, I would say 40% of my service business waited for their cars, because they didn't want the hassle of getting a rental car. They didn't want to go home. They didn't want to get somebody to give them a ride. They just waited. So when someone's waiting and they need something else on their vehicle, after you've spent 45 minutes waiting in a car dealership, that's, a week. And they don't want to wait any longer. They don't want to get those additional jobs done. They'll come back, right? That's, then you have to set an appointment and make them commit. But that was our business model. Okay, well, this is what you need. We can put you in next Tuesday, same time. See you then. Send you a confirmation for your appointment. But nowadays, especially right now, you can't wait. I can barely have people in the dealership right now with all the COVID restrictions. And what I have found is, again, what's the best for the customer as far as their time is, they don't want to come back. You call and tell them, we need these things done to your car, and they say, okay, because their time is precious, and they don't want to run around town, and they just want, I'll just come get it when it's ready, and whatever it needs, do it.
That's got to be a little bit nicer, that part of it. I mean, it's a little bit frustrating to have no one be able to sit around in the dealerships and be there. But you did make the statement I think holds most true, which is 45 minutes in a car dealership may as well be a week to normal people. Yeah. And I feel the same way. 45 minutes in any medical dentist office to me may as well be a week, may as well be, whatever. So I get the mentality. How have you had to change? Obviously a lot, but what's really changed for you over the last 8 months, 9 months with everything that we're dealing with? In your expedience, in your process, what's changed there?
Well, the biggest thing that's changed is the lack of customer contact. We do as much as we can remotely. We go out to the service drive, get the information off the car, leave the customer sitting in the car, come back in, write the repair order, get whatever recommendations are on the MPI, and then go back out and try to sell it to the customer. It's there's a lot of handing people menus. There's a lot of just what I call remote conversation, where you don't really have the interaction that we used to have. We got plexiglass in front of all the service advisors, the cashier. It's almost to the point where we're asking people, don't come in. It's like, don't do it.
Right, but now this brings us back to one of your top 3 things that's better for you, which is the texting portion. I assume that's just absolutely blown up for you over the last 9 months, and people live and breathe by it. Yes?
Yes. No one answers the phone anymore. If you're not texting them, you're not going to get in touch with them.
Very interesting. See, and I hate texting. I mean, I do it because if I don't, then I won't be able to keep up on things. But I would rather have a phone call. I think things are more are accomplished quicker via a phone call than via text. But now with video and pictures, I guess you guys can really tell a story to a customer and make it obvious as to what the next steps are.
Yes, that has been a huge game changer, and I don't know where we would be right now if we didn't have that.
That's crazy. Let me ask you, is there a reason you don't use the tablets in the drive? I know it's become a very, as you said earlier, vogue, chic thing to do. Have you tried it? What are your opinions on that part of the deal?
Well, years ago I did try it, and what I found to be disappointing in it is that the people that made the tablets didn't have access to the DMS. So basically, you're just writing an appointment in on your tablet, and then you have to go back in and hope that that appointment pushes into your DMS quickly, or you have to do it all over again, and then then you can write a repair order. It was just like another hurdle. It wasn't going to help anybody do anything faster or more accurately. It was just another thing to do before you could get on with your business. In the last couple of years, DMSs have come out with their own tablets, and actually we changed DMSs last year, and just about the time that COVID hit, we were about to go to tablets, and then I decided that, no, this isn't the environment to, stand next to somebody and show them the screen.
Correct.
So
the environment is to text them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
that's interesting. You guys were getting ready to do it, and then all this happened, and then all of a sudden technology sort of wasn't as important, which is interesting given the distances and everything that we have to deal with. That part of the tech wasn't. That's definitely interesting. When you first saw the appointment schedulers for online, they were bad, weren't they? When they first came out, they weren't even connected to your actual calendar, and they were just really poor. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, yes. When the first online schedulers came out, they were ridiculous. It didn't push into your DMS, so the appointment that someone took the time to build all the information onto the appointment did not come out on the repair order. It wasn't there because it wouldn't push through. That's where X-Time had it above everybody when they first came out.
They still do.
They pushed into the DMS. All your notes showed up. They sent out reminders. They did everything that wasn't being done before.
We've had clients who've been convinced by other vendors to go with them via the price model, because obviously X-Time being who they are, they sit at the top of the price pyramid like they should. And it doesn't surprise me, because your dealership, your ownership is really ahead of the curve. They're ahead of the curve on the sales side with the technology. They're obviously ahead of the curve here. How often are you having people pitch you things that are about saving you money, and you look at them and say, yeah, but it could probably create more headaches than the money you're going to save?
So, pretty much daily. It's a nonstop thing. I get phone calls constantly from people trying to sell me something that's going to save me money, make things faster, and when you look into it, it's not. I don't mind spending a little extra money if I can have something that actually works and that is a benefit and a tool for my employees, not a hurdle to get around.
That's an interesting point. I think too many people right now are leading with price, and they're thinking that that's really, and again, to our discussion, we've already brought it up 2 or 3 times, that price really doesn't matter. Time is what matters. I wish people were more about the value of their proposition as opposed to how it may be less money than I currently spend. I just feel like it's a lazy way out, and I think that you'd feel the same if your advisor sat next to someone and said, hey, for an extra, it's $5 off. Why give the $5? Just keep it and build value in yourself. Building value is probably even more important for your job than it is indeed for sales, I would imagine, because once you buy a car, servicing it there's a million places to service it after you bought it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to work very, very hard to keep your customers, and it's a constant lifetime thing. Just because someone came in and had a good experience this time doesn't mean they're going to be back for the good experience next time. You have to keep yourself visible to them. You know, we have a very aggressive email campaigns. We do prospecting mailers. We have service reminders through Honda. We put ourselves out there in front of the customers constantly.
And is that another metric that you'll look at, is the number of return businesses? I don't know. You guys have a term for it. I forget what it's called, but the people who come back and are on the life cycle.
Yeah. Retention, life cycle. We do pay very close attention to that.
I've heard so much about the lack of loyalty in businesses in general. And we hear about it on the sales side where someone says, I don't really care if I buy it from Anderson or I buy it from so-and-so. I don't really care, whoever's got the best price. Same thing in service, or less, because now they own the car and they have ownership of it. And now it's maybe a little bit more important to them.
Well, I will tell you that it has changed considerably over the last 10 years. People used to pick a mechanic, and doesn't matter, what, when, where, or how, they just went back to that mechanic. It's not so much that as it used to be. Price does make a big difference. People are very price conscious, but you still, in service, there's still an element of loyalty. There's still the people that come back, like we talked about earlier, service advisors have their customers, and those people do come back to those people because they have the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Subaru owner. My wife and I have had our '07 Subaru. We bought it brand new. It had 6 miles on it. It's now got 167,000 on it. And I'm specific. I go to a dealership. I need to find the master tech. I need to hear what the master tech's done. And we just had to have a huge service done on our car. And I was comfortable because I've been working with this dealership and this master tech on my car for 3 years. And I thought, okay, if I've got a $5,000 service, I'm going to have this guy do it. But here's the thing that got me, and I want to know your feedback on this. I do a $5,000 service, which I realize there are bigger, but there are also smaller, right?
Yeah.
I get my car back, and it's an absolute disaster. It has not been vacuumed. It has not been washed. There's been no effort to make my car look at all any different for a $5,000 service. And I know it's an old car. Am I going overboard? Is that only something we do for new car customers? I mean, Jeanette, what did I miss here? Why do I feel unloved after such an expensive service?
So you feel in love because there was nothing visually different about your car. I assume you had a timing belt or axles or something that cost $1 bazillion, but you can't see that.
Yeah, no, it was all part of the engine. It was all they had to take the engine off. They had to take my turbo off. If I looked at the labor hours versus the actual parts, I'd probably go crying at night because the differences would be so vast. But yeah, you're right. I couldn't see it. But the one thing I did see was a disgusting muddy car that had been sitting there. And let me follow this up, which I recently learned. I recently got it walked out to my car and in my garage, and it did not move. It did not turn over. A light did not come on. Nothing happened, right? Okay, battery's dead. Try to jump it. Battery's dead. Fine. Get it towed to the local guy, who is not my normal guy. Local guy pulls it and says, Sean, you realize you have your original battery in the car.
From 07?
This is 07. This is a 13-year-old Subaru genuine parts battery in my car.
Wow, that's like Guinness Book of World Records.
That's what the text said. But bigger question, why would the people who just took my engine out not put a new battery in? Like, how is this? Do you not have to do the battery to take the engine out, Jeanette? I guess I don't know. But I feel like no one's paying attention to the details. Again, am I the only one who feels this way?
No, it happens. These things happen. And one of the things I train on the quick lube, on the express service, when I start training up my technicians is, they don't know, customers don't know how hard you worked on your car. They don't know what you had to do to it to get it ready for them. All they know is what they see. So if you didn't replace all the valve stem caps, if you didn't make sure that the windshield washer's fluid was up to the top, if you didn't make sure that the car was cleaner when you got in it, it was cleaner when you delivered it than when you got in it, then they're going to think you didn't do anything to your car. It doesn't matter how hard you worked on it or how hard the job was, they're not going to appreciate it because they can't see any different.
Yep, and that goes right back all the way full circle to the video discussion. There's no appreciation for the work you say you have to do to my car, as opposed to the work you show me you have to do. Now, these guys didn't have to show me anything. My car lit up like a Christmas tree. I could feel the fact it was running on 3.5 cylinders, so I didn't need someone to tell me something was drastically wrong with it. But I needed it fixed, and people come to me and say, Sean, why would you invest that kind of money in that car? It's 13 years old. Go get a new car. A, they don't make cars this way anymore, and I like it for its simplicity and lack of technology. And B, that's the first major service I've had in 13 years of ownership. So why? Well, I throw it out because of one service? That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah. Well, and in the long run, how much is a new car, right?
Right.
$35,000, $40,000.
Yeah. More a month, blah, 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 blah. This car is paid for. It's been paid for a decade. Who cares? You just drive it. I love it to death. It does everything I need. So, Jeanette, let me bring you full circle here. We talked about women in the car business being cool. That happened in the 90s. I want to ask you, how do we continue to maybe even make it cooler and get more women, whether it's in the drive, on the technician rack? How do we do it, in your opinion?
Well, I think it needs to be a broader thing. You go to monster.com or Craigslist or anything like that, and there's not really an automotive section, right? Our industry is like the sleeping little industry, especially on the service side. If you're a mechanic, everybody knows you go to a dealership. But if you're a service salesperson, or if you're really good on the phones, or are you really looking at a car dealership? If somebody called me up and told me, I've been working on a phone bank for the last 3 years, and I was looking for some place where I'd have some chance at advancement, I would just have a meltdown and tell them come down right now. But that doesn't happen. Those people with those job skills don't know that the automotive industry exists.
Do you think there's intimidation from the female side? Because as you mentioned earlier, 50% of the women coming through the drive of a dealership as a customer, right? When they pull in, if they see an all male, do you think it would concern them to say, hey, do I really want to be in this? Where do you think we could do a better job of maybe making it more, I don't want to say family friendly, but easier for people to kind of see the value in what we do? As you stated, to open the discussion, you've been doing this a long time and it's been very good to you. And so I think it's important that women hear that this business is and can be. I've been in it 20. It's been great to me. That's what I want people to hear. How do we convey the message?
Well, we have things like this. We have to put it out there that there's huge opportunity, and there's so many things that women can do. Besides working in the parts department, besides being a technician, you can be a warranty administrator. You can work as accounts receivable, accounts payable. There's so much. And, service advisor, it just never stops. You can be on the phones. You can be a customer service coordinator. There's just so much. And there's very little being said about it. And when there is, the colleges have this thing called a PACT program where they train young people in the art of being a mechanic, but there's nothing like that for learning how to be a service writer or a warranty administrator, even shuttling people into the automotive industry. It's, as far as the general public thinks, I believe it's you're a mechanic or nothing.
I would totally agree with you. And that is so interesting you say that, because I don't think we're not, when we go to the tech schools, right? We consider these kids who are techs, okay, well, you're going to be a mechanic. Maybe someone gets done with tech school and they go, you know what? I'm glad I know about it, but I'd rather sell something and make money based on it. I don't know that I've never actually gone to a local tech place to find or even ask about service writers. It's never occurred to me that maybe just like in normal life, people go to college and don't actually use their degree. Maybe there's someone who likes the industry but doesn't like the idea of being a mechanic. It's great.
Yeah, I interviewed a young man who was just coming out of the tech program, and I always ask young mechanics, so what do you like to do, right? And if someone tells me, that they had an old car and, they put in a supercharger or, they took apart their mom's transmission, I know that guy's a technician.
Yeah.
They tell me, well, I changed the oil one time on my uncle's car. That's not a technician. That's somebody that was interested in the field, but they're never going to work with their hands. It's just not going to happen. So I was interviewing this one kid, and I could tell he's just really not mechanically inclined. But we had an opening in our parts department. And I said, well, maybe you would like to do this. And he goes, well, I don't know what that is. And I said, well, come over here, let me show you, right? I said, you have to know about cars to be able to look up what people need. You have to be computer literate because, it's all based on computers looking stuff up and building stuff out. And he goes, yeah, I think I'd like to try that. That kid's been with me for 10 years now. He's a full-blown journeyman counterman. And coincidentally, his brother is a technician for me now.
But he brought his brother into the fold. Is that right? After
yes.
having worked with you and for you, his brother is now a mechanic under that fold.
Yep. So people just don't understand the possibilities other than being a mechanic.
Possibilities are endless in service is what I'm hearing, Jeanette. That's really what I'm hearing from you.
There's all kinds of opportunities. I take my porters, and if they're interested, I make them quick lube technicians. And if they do well at that, I put them in the main shop. And that's, I've done that dozens of times because I think it's important to grow your people.
When you do that, though, is there an educational piece that comes with that? Like I mentioned with the sort of, mechanic, like how does one make the jump and is there education, a formal education necessary to take someone into the mechanic role? And then do you allow for them to do that? Do you help with that? How does that actually work when you make that sort of promotional jump?
One of the things I tell my mechanics when I'm interviewing them is that you can't just be a mechanic. Their training, especially on the new car side, is constant. There is, cars change. Every year a new model comes out, it has some special features, some new technology. We have to know about it. We have to understand it, and we have to be able to fix it. And, I'm a mechanic now, I know everything doesn't work.
Mechanics now are more like, people who take care of IT support. I mean, there's just so much computer technology in these things. And God, I was at my buddy's dealership who's got the Audi electric car, and you take there's just this gigantic battery in this car. The whole battery is underneath. I thought, I don't want to drive that. It looks dangerous as all get out. But the mechanics were talking about how they have to have different suits, use different gloves. Don't touch that wire, you'll blow up. I thought to myself, wow, it used to just be 4 bolts, take out a motor, and do what one needs. That's pretty outrageous. I think you make a good point about having to stay up on that technology side. That's crazy. Training.
And Honda has a really good program for in-dealership training, which I encourage constantly, especially the younger techs, to get up to par. And, it's in quadrants, PDI tech, lube tech, fast lube. Then they go off into electrical and different components, brakes, those kind of things. So I encourage them to do as much of that as they can. And I also encourage them to get a partner, so to speak. So if they have an older car and it's doing something, or they want them to look at something, they can run over and get the guy and have him come over and take a look at the car that they're working on.
Internal training apprentices. You're getting people to
Yes.
always want to learn and from each other. That is phenomenal. Great job.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Jeanette, you're busy. You are running a service department. Clearly, you have a lot on your plate. You've been more than gracious with your time. I truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. This was awesome. I love learning about service, especially from someone with your breadth of knowledge. So thank you for doing the show, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Sean. I was very flattered that you invited me.
Well, I'm even more flattered you accepted. So it's a two-way street for me. So thank you guys so much. Don't forget, Jeanette Baldwin, you can find her. Jeanette, are you on LinkedIn at all? I feel like I've seen you on there. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes,
You can find Jeanette on there. And Jeanette, last question before I go. Have you ever used, I meant to ask you earlier, have you ever used recruiters for finding people in your department? I know sales uses it a lot. Have you ever used any departments like that for your side?
I have tried, but again, there's just not enough knowledge about the availabilities in the service department. The recruiters, it just doesn't work. The majority of the people that work for me, I have found either through the PAC program, through the college, or through referrals from other employees.
And that's what I wanted to get to. See, that's where we're going to leave it, everyone. Your employees are your best source of referral as well as future opportunities. So keep that in mind. Jeanette's told you a bunch of stories how to do it. Again, thank you, Jeanette. Have a wonderful day. Everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.